Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 370, 371, and 372. The great swordsman Mihawk, Luffy, comes under the attack of the Black Sword. The extermination strategy in action, the power of the pacifistas, and Akainu's plot, Whitebeard entrapped. In these episodes, I had a moment where I got fooled about Whitebeard also. But the reason I was fooled was because I didn't know where the source of this info came from. And as soon as I knew, I felt like this guy was a real dodo bird. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. You guys, this kind of cracked me up because, the thing about trusting information is that the source should be of concern. And you should take that into consideration if you're getting your information anonymously and try and predict what it could be that somebody might be attempting to do. But it wasn't even anonymous. The source was the actual Marines. And I just really want to take this guy and slap and shake him. Why do you think they're going to be honest with you about what's going on with Whitebeard, bro? Why would you ever expect them to tell you the truth? What is the matter with you? You are a goon and an idiot. So, anyway, let's back up and start with 470, which has one of my favorite of the thumbnails of all of these episodes. It's just Boa with her head tilted back, pointing in that way that she has when she's looking so far down her nose at you that she's actually looking up. It's just a joke that keeps popping up, and I really keep thinking I'm going to get tired of it, but it's just really funny every time. And I feel like the animators probably had a good time figuring out exactly how to draw this because it looks crazy, and I just think sometimes about what it must be like if you're somebody who draws characters doing wild stuff, but often they're just doing the kinds of things that the kinds of positions that a human body will often do. It's simply more extreme. Then you get used to certain, a style of drawing. And I like to imagine that when they got to these moments with Boa, they had to get somebody and have them stand in front of them and be like, okay, look, yeah, I couldn't find an example of anybody standing like this in stock photos for me to copy off of. So can you just come here and weirdly almost backbend while pointing and just hold that for a second? Hold it. I'm so sorry. I know that probably hurts your lower back really bad. I'm going to need you to hold it for just a little bit longer. It's just, and her tits completely swallow her head. So you cannot see her head at all. It's just the arch of her boobs. It's really funny, you guys. I love this so much. So this episode is mostly about the attempt by Mihawk to fight Luffy and everybody around Luffy stepping in to keep him from having to actually do that. I ended the last episode saying I don't really see that Luffy can win against Mihawk, so I don't get how he's going to come out of this. And the answer to that is pretty much that the only way he gets out of it is if he doesn't have to face Mihawk, which I really like. Just for the record, it's so difficult when you have people who are really high powered to continue for them to seem like a threat. If you're going to have the main character be able to sort of plow through them when the plot needs it to happen. So I thought it was a really smart way to handle it, of just having everybody around him combining their efforts to just straight up distract Mihawk and whatnot. And the distractions are very wildly in terms of quality. We have a couple of guys who come up who are yelling about like, hey, Mihawk, remember the last time we challenged you? Well, here comes a blast from the past to kick your smug ass. And these guys are coming at him with this full confidence. They are all prepared to win. And they come up running, and Mihawk dispatches them with almost no effort whatsoever. And he just straight up says, I don't remember you. You're worms in a long line of them. Honestly, this is the sort of line that if I were still like out in the world dating, I would save. Because I feel like this could be something that you like text back to an unsolicited dick pic and just be like, I cannot emphasize enough how unmemorable this dick is. One worm in a long line of them. So these dudes, like I say, the quality varies wildly. And there is a guy who shows up later that it turns out Mihawk does recognize. And it's not like they've met, it doesn't seem like, but he's heard of him. But first, Luffy is continuing to run. We had like things start off with Eva making room for him to get through a couple of places using Death Wink. And Mihawk manages to sort of slash at Luffy, and it looks like he manages to do some damage. Like there's blood, and Luffy makes the noise and has that sort of like animation of, you know, but all that really happens is that Luffy like slides into a wall. It doesn't look like his actual body is damaged. It seems almost more like the momentum of his running got interrupted. So anyway, Jinbei is the one who steps in here. And he's saying only Ace's brother would survive that attack. Anyone else would have been sliced clean in half. And I'm not really sure why that is. If you guys can explain it to me. I know that, like, shooting and cutting Luffy is more difficult because of his rubberiness. But it's not impossible. And is it... like, I would think that Mihawk, if anybody was going to be able to come at Luffy with a blow that would succeed in piercing his rubber and actually cutting him, it would be Mihawk that would be able to do it. So I don't really know. I feel like there's another mention at one point of how Luffy's ability is actually the one that's sort of the most badass out of everybody's. And I don't disagree. I'm not trying to say that he's wrong. I think it's Captain Smoker who says that. But it feels more like it's an ability that's very adaptable and extremely defensive in comparison to a lot of the abilities we have seen, which are extremely offensive. And I'm sort of curious about whether you guys agree with that assessment, because there have been other abilities that are maybe a little bit more showy or seem a little bit more like sometimes straight up magical. And so they capture my imagination and sort of make me go, oh, that's dope. Like, I'd like to see a little bit more of how that works. But we have really seen the versatility of Luffy's ability. And it's been a rare person that he goes up against who can affect him the same way that they affect the average adversary. I feel like the only people that I remember who managed to really fuck Luffy up, like in a way that I was like, maybe he's actually gonna be dead this time. We have Crocodile, and that was one of the first ones. Captain Smoker almost killed Luffy, but I'm not totally willing to give Smoker all the credit for that, because I feel like there was more going on at the time, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't fully remember. And what's his name? The one from Impel Down with the poison. I keep wanting to say Magnanimous. you guys. That's not Magellan. Magellan. He is certainly not magnanimous. Oh my god. But, you know, there's been a lot of abilities we've seen that just, the way they work, it just doesn't quite take the same way. And I am just really starting to wonder, is he right? Is it, and was Luffy written this way specifically from the beginning to be like almost impossible to kill? Or, I mean, of course he was. I take that back. But like, did the author realize that Luffy's ability was going to be more badass than a lot of things that he came up with later? Or has it just been sort of the necessity, well, Luffy has to get through all of these like baddies, and so I have to find a way for his power to work so that he can survive this encounter, and that has led to him, you know, the side effect is now he seems like a dude who just can't die. Lucci, also good. Thank you, Florian. Yes, good point. But anyway, so I was just sort of curious about the way that he says, like, if anybody else had been hit with that, they would have died, but Luffy, you know, he survived it. And Jinbei decides that he's going to face off against Mihawk. And it says, like, well, I would sort of like for this whole thing to just die down. I want peace. And maybe it's too late for that. But I gotta try. And I'm just sort of hopeful that maybe we can get there eventually. And I want to, like, save this kid over here. And so he does his fishman karate. As he is going for it, there is, like, the firing of these cannons from far away. And he does brick fist as these cannons they're coming from every direction. It's like a 360 attack. And he is able to explode all of the cannonballs. And Mihawk slices some of the cannonballs up in half. Like, I was sort of surprised by that because I thought that Mihawk would be on the same side as the guys firing the cannons. So I didn't really understand why he would want to assist Jinbei in avoiding the cannon strikes. But they come at each other, and, you know, I, for one, had thought maybe Mihawk and Jinbei would be sort of evenly matched. It is almost embarrassing how bad Mihawk just tanks Jinbei. That dude goes flying and sinks through like a thick crust of ice and is underwater in a moment. And like, the only reason I'm not concerned about him is because he is a fish man. If he were anybody else, I'd be like, can somebody please go get him? Can we take a moment? Because that dude, this, you know, it's bad. So this is when Luffy, he has this like, and you guys, again, I feel like there's sort of lack of clarity here. When he sees that Jinbei has gone down, Luffy is like, okay, you bastard. And he comes up against Mihawk again. And he is like, his arms are going forward. And then you see them get sliced off. But then he's punching the ground. And he's like, oh, I see. He have sliced off my arms. So that was him, like, imagining what would have happened. Okay. I feel like I just was not following what the animation was trying to get me to see there. And I think I got so caught up in, like, because I rewound this and rewatched it, and I felt like I'm still not getting what just happened here, that I missed the fact that, like, in the next few moments, he actually says out loud why it hasn't happened yet. But yeah, so Mihawk is like, well, I guess you're not as stupid as you look after all, and continues to, like, strike at him. And as Luffy is avoiding him, he's sort of looking around at the fighting going on around them in general, and he sees behind him, because he's backbending to escape this strike, that the whole top of that wave that is made from the frozen tidal wave, basically, Mihawk has sliced it all off. And I don't fully get why, except for like anime gonna anime. But that goes flying upward into the air in a way that I just don't feel like it would. If you slice something like that, it doesn't fly up and then crash down. It just slides back, you know? But so this makes like the iceberg turn into shrapnel, essentially. And it's all coming down in chunks that sometimes are the size of the ships, you know? So everybody is very, very distracted, understandably, by the overall spectacle of this moment. And then we have Captain Buggy. And he's yelling, hey guys, it's time to make the plan called Make Captain Buggy Look Like a Badass go into action. Because I'm pretty sure that they're filming this war. And I will never get enough of this weird little side plot, you guys. It's not just the fact that Buggy is in the midst of this like weird campaign with these men for no reason at the moment. It's also the fact that we still have Mr. 3 in there just rolling his eyes and being like, you guys are so dumb. Oh my God. And that really makes it. It's great. I just think it's super funny. The two of them paired up is a very, very good idea. We jump over briefly to Doflamingo, who's like on this guy's back. I don't know what the deal is with this dude, but he is apparently trying to convince Crocodile to team up. And Crocodile, for his part, is just sort of like, I just don't see it for us. I'm so sorry. We're on the brink of a new era, and it belongs to us, an era where all the powers that matter... What is it that he says? Hold on, I'm trying to find it here. Oh, that's right. He calls like all these guys old fogies, basically. An era where all that matters is the power you yield. Sounds appealing, right? You want a piece of it, I bet. And Crocodile has a moment of just, Come now, I can tell you're intrigued. Sure, technically, you've been stripped of your title, but when you get down to it, we're both warlords at heart, aren't we? And Crocodile is just like, dude, I don't like the fact that you're acting like you're my peer, bud. We are not on the same level. You should be asking to work for me. Begging, actually. And Doflamingo's like, well, shit. I really thought that the fact that you went to prison would have, like, taken you down a notch or two. Evidently not. And I do really enjoy, like, Crocodile and the serious sort of deadpan quality of his interactions. He's just fun, man. I really hope that he sticks around again a little bit. Yeah, here he says, get lost, you jackal, and he creates one of those, like, sand cyclones. And Doflamingo is just up in the air, a ball of feathers. And as he falls towards the ground, in a very controlled way, is like, man, I really thought you could be reasoned with, but I guess not. So we go back to Buggy at this point, who is, with amongst his men, his back turned, and doesn't realize that this whirlwind is coming at him. And it sweeps him and a bunch of his men up. It's like just collateral damage. And it's clear Crocodile does not notice. And even if he did, he would not care. But I did find it really funny that Buggy is so uninvolved overall with this fight that he's just over here being like accidentally swept up into things in a very literal way. Excuse me. So now we go to Boa, who's arguing with Smoker. I'm so sorry. Hold on, you guys. Let me take a sip of water. I don't know why I have hiccups all of a sudden. I didn't at the start of the episode, so what the hell? Okay. Boa, once again, calls Luffy her husband. The last time that we saw her, like, fantasy about this, it was the wedding, her walking down the aisle. This time, it's about the honeymoon. And she says, the way this is written, it's her and Luffy like sitting on the bed, clinking champagne glasses. Him still in his white tux with like a giant lily in the buttonhole. And she says, let us abscond into the depths of amorous euphoria. Which, I swear to God, you guys, I need to like make a little list somewhere of like phrases that I come across in things that I want to reuse somewhere else. And I don't know where I would, maybe I'll write a character at some point who says the goofy shit like this, but abscond into the depths of amorous euphoria is the most spectacular way to say we are going to fuck like bunnies. That's what we're going to do, actually. And even in her fantasy, she can't just let herself like have a good time. Luffy is like, why don't, what if I get too famished by our lovemaking, basically? My darling, cook for me so I can taste your love. And so now she's like, oh, cooking. Okay. Yeah, let me figure out how I'm going to do that. And comes back to the present sort of with like, if I'm going to marry him, I have to figure out how I'm going to be able to keep him like satisfied in a physical, like non-sexual way, because he has a truly legendary appetite. And we see like a montage of her carrying fish like that look like they're at least 50 pounds and stirring these huge pots of soup with like the kind of stick that they use really for laundry, and with one foot like braced up on the edge of it. The whole thing here of figuring out like, oh, I'll need to cook for him is actually kind of genius. Like, I realized when I stopped and thought about it, when you're considering a relationship with somebody and like what the future would be like together, you think of these sorts of things. You consider like, well, how would XYZ work because they're interested in this thing? Am I also interested? Is it something that we could do together? We would have to like account for that in the ways that we each approach something. And so her sort of stopping and being like, I'll have to figure out how to cook. It seems like all of her faces while she's doing this are it looked almost angry a lot of the time. So at first I thought what I was getting off her was that she was like a bit upset at the prospect of having to cook for him. But as it went on, I started to be like, wait, maybe not. It seems like it's more like just determined, and she's super excited about it. And she's got this huge like cart that she's pushing piled with food. And then we come back to her in the present saying, I'll gladly embrace any challenge that life throws our way because it's worth it. Anything's worth it to be his wife. And she giggles, has her hands clasped in front of her, completely lost in thought. And we come back and Smoker's standing there going, what the? I can't tell if she wants to fight me or not. This cracked me up. I think the reason that it got me so much is like there's a lot of other much more comical characters that she could be doing this with, but Smoker's very serious. Like, he takes himself super seriously. And so him being the one that she's fucking with, and he's willing to sort of wait and give her space and be like, hold on, let me see here if she, I don't want to just attack if she's not intending to fight me. I'm not an asshole. So let me give her a second. And he does. And it seems like she's forgotten he's even there. And so he doesn't really know what to do or how to handle that. I thought that this was really, really fun. And I just wanted to mention too, like, I know that occasionally we'll sort of stop and consider who we want to be cast in different roles. And I was thinking about like the way that we would do Captain Smoker. There was some fan casting online that I thought was really interesting. I saw somebody suggest Henry Cavill, but to be honest, I'm thinking of Captain Smoker as a lot older than that. There was a cosplay done by this dude who looked a lot like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and it was pretty hot. And I was sort of like, okay, you know what? Jeffrey Dean Morgan actually would be pretty tight. But if we were going to ignore the fact that he has such an imposing physique and is really wide, the attitude of Captain Smoker, I feel like we could do quite well with a Timothy Olyphant type, even though he's very narrow and has much more of a sort of cowboy vibe. Smoker does have, in a way, a cowboy vibe himself. It's just, you know, a cowboy crossed with like a WWE wrestler. But yeah, so anyway, I just enjoy the fan casting. And I also, I was thinking about who would play Boa, because like the thing with Boa is that she is a really funny character, but she doesn't know it. And so honestly, my instinct that I had when I was going through my mental Rolodex of who would be good for her, I landed on Jenny Slate, who plays Mona Lisa Saperstein in Community. No, sorry, in Parks and Rec. And I don't know where that came from. I feel like I kind of want to see that. She would play it a lot jokier and less serious than I imagine Boa in the show, but I feel like that could work. And she's so like obnoxious that her kicking down a sculpture that children made because she doesn't like how it makes her look, she could make that genuinely hilarious. So I think that I'm going for Jenny Slate for Boa. I'm just, we're just going to do that. Anyway, I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going off in so many different directions here. There's just a ton of fighting, and it's all going on between different characters. So I'm having to like split my conversation here, in order to touch on everybody. She yells at Smoker at the end of this, "The only way you're getting past me is in a coffin," which was actually a very sick-ass line that I liked a lot. So, again, Luffy versus Mihawk, still struggling to get past him. And I love the look when Luffy just comes straight at Mihawk, and Mihawk has an expression on his face. Mihawk he very rarely changes expression. It's like the most you get out of him is a widening of the eyes for the most part. And you get it here, and you get it when he is up against this other dude a little bit later. So yeah, there's no denying his fighting skills have improved, but I've already seen all his moves. There's no chance that I'll miss again. Not this close. And he's saying this to himself as Luffy is running toward him underneath the huge, like, cyclone of sand. And Luffy grabs Buggy out of the cyclone, and he yanks him down in front of him and uses him as a human shield. To which Buggy yells, "What are you doing? I'll die." And I was like, "You'll die? Why? Sir, your whole thing is that you can get sliced 1 billion times and nothing happens." It's like Buggy forgets his own powers occasionally. And I love the fact that Luffy says he heard Buggy say, "Don't mind me, I'm here to save you." And he's like, "That is certainly not what I said." And then he says, "Gum Gum Human Shield," which I just don't think you need Gum Gum ahead of that, because it's not your body that's doing anything. You're just chucking Buggy in the way. And Bucky gets sliced into literal ribbon-like strips and is angry about this. So he chucks a buggy ball at Mihawk, who, in the most careless fashion, knocks it back toward him. Like he's, like he's just playing tennis. And it slowly comes over to Buggy, who says, "Would you like to hear a joke? How's the Muggy Ball like a robust financial market?" I don't know. How is it? Say it together, everyone. Because it goes boom. That was really bad, you guys. That was terrible. It was so bad. I really love that the joke they came up with involved a robust financial market. I mean, I suppose. It's not what I would have reached for. I'll just say that. But sure, why not? So anyway, this again is buying time for Luffy, and he runs away. And Mihawk is like, spots him and is like, "What the fuck? We're not done." And he does another strike toward him. And all of his strikes, I want to mention, like, it's bright green light. It's like green tinged with a little blue. So it's not exactly like a lime green, but it's cool looking. I really like it. And he is about to go after him again when this dude jumps in named Flower Sword Vista. And evidently Mihawk knows this dude and is impressed by his reputation. This guy is very large and he fights with 2 swords. So they have a whole, back and forth that lasts for pretty much the next 2 episodes until they finally agree, like, shit's going in a different direction. We're going to have to wrap this up. And I'm going to sort of jump ahead here because I'm over halfway through the time I have, and I haven't even gotten through the first of these 3 episodes. But honestly, I think for a lot of this, that's okay, because talk about filler in the next couple of episodes. Next episode ends with Whitebeard getting stabbed. And this dude we start episode 3 with the longest slow pan along the face of every single character and their reaction to Whitebeard getting stabbed. We see the reaction of anyone who happened to be within 20 miles. It's so funny. Like, you guys, I started the 3rd episode and I got distracted. I think there was like somebody delivering something at the door. And I got up to leave. I saw that we were doing the very opening of the react shots. I got up to leave and grab the thing from the door and come back. And I was planning to jump back a minute or 2. And I came back and we were still doing that slow pan. And it lasted for like another minute and a half. And I was just sitting here like, I really thought I was going to have to go back. I do not think I have to go back. Nothing has happened. We're just establishing that this thing, oh my God. So let's see. I forgot about Mihawk because he's fighting with what's his name? What is his name? Flower Sword? Sorry guys. I know that, Florian made me this thing and I'm going to open it because I have it in my like other bookmarks. But this dude, he's like fighting him and Mihawk is thinking to himself, his power isn't in his strength. And I'm thinking that he's talking about this sword fighter that he is currently up against. Like, silly me thinking that Mihawk is focused on the fight in front of him. It turns out he's actually thinking about Luffy, and what he thinks to himself is his power is to rally those around him. That he basically managed to escape Mihawk's attacks because so many people were trying to help him out that it wound up not mattering if like he was a better fighter. That's just that wasn't the crux of the issue. So yeah, he says, of all the people seeking to conquer the sea, he may possess the greatest talent of all. And I really liked that in particular, because it seems like this is what we already know about Luffy, right? He just manages to inspire loyalty in people. And it's a really tricky thing, because like being able to inspire loyalty in people is one of those like talents that is very based in a lot of ways solely on your personality. And so what you can get into is a sort of ticklish cult of personality situation where, like, you know, you've got somebody who, even though they mean well, if everybody just like does what they say because they are the boss and they are so admired, it can go very, very badly. But I feel like Luffy inspires loyalty despite the fact that a lot of people realize that he isn't like smarter than them. It's his spirit rather than his intellect, which I feel like is almost a perfect recipe, because then you've got folks second guessing him and being willing to argue with him in a way that if he were a different type, they might not have the courage to say anything or disagree, you know? And I really feel like keeping somebody from getting almost like too much sway over others starts to become more and more difficult the more loyalty they have inspired from those around them. And it's a really funny thing that can be like totally weaponized. Like, you know, celebrities, depending on the way that they try and approach this sort of thing, absolutely figure out how to weaponize their fan bases. I don't know how many of you have been in on the beef between Megan Thee Stallion and, I was about to say Cardi B. No, Nicki Minaj. But Nicki Minaj has these fans who are so defensive of her that they're out here like doxing people who talk shit about her. Randoms on fucking TikTok just sharing their opinion. People who don't have any power or don't know anything. And her fans are so psychotic about nobody getting to talk shit about their queen that they go to these lengths that are just bizarre. And similarly, Taylor Swift has this going on. And when I talk about these two women, I'm saying it because I feel like it's very purposeful what they're doing. Nicki Minaj knows that her fans get like this, and I feel like she really encourages that. She is messy and very like tacky in the way that she approaches her beefs, and has no problem like getting absolute strangers to do some of her dirty work. And Taylor Swift has done this very interesting thing with her fan base. She has had a couple of like interactions with fans where she has made it seem as if every fan is one step away from actually becoming her in real life friend. There was a whole thing where there was like some fans that she randomly selected to come to her house, and she baked them cookies and they got to listen to the new album like ahead of everybody. And it was the sort of thing that like they weren't anybody, but all of a sudden they're getting to hang out with their idol. And it really created this like idea in so many fans' heads that she is so grounded. She's like, oh, practically one of us. Any of us could be her friend and she would embrace us. And it's a really different tactic than somebody like Beyonce, who her whole thing is aloofness. She isn't friends with anybody. She isn't available in the, like, you don't see her getting photographed by the paparazzi going out to Starbucks. She's not showing up to like events like, you know, Taylor going to these football games and stuff for her boyfriend to support him. Beyonce isn't out in the world in this way, and she isn't in gossip stuff, and she doesn't interact with fans on that level. So for her, the cult of personality thing, which she very much has going on as well, has a totally different feel to it, because she is like this almost like deity like figure, whereas Taylor's appeal is that she isn't aloof, that she is very available and feels like a real person. And I just think it's just interesting, you know, the ways in which who these people are, how they decide they're going to lead, and then the types of people that follow them based on their own like preferences and desires. And so my like personality as somebody who is hugely visual, a perfectionist, and really loves like sort of aspirational shit, it makes so much sense if you step back and look at it that I am a Beyonce stan, because the fact that she doesn't interact in like a daily way allows me to project onto her kind of anything I want, which is fantastic for my type of personality. But a lot of people are not like that. I don't want to know too much about the celebrities that I like. I want them to keep their mouths shut and stay out of shit so that I can continue to enjoy them without feeling like they're about to step on a landmine any second, because they just can't shut the fuck up. And I maintain that overall, a lot of celebrities could learn a thing or two from Beyonce's. Her branding is so locked down that it's a little extreme probably for certain types of performers and stuff. But overall, I think just letting your work speak for itself and not engaging on social media and things as much is likely to serve you better if you become a big enough star. Anyway, I'm so sorry I got off on this tangent, you guys. But, you know, just talking about Luffy and the way that he sort of operates. And it's not like he wants to become king of the pirates. It's not like he's not after this goal. But I don't think I stopped to really consider the fact that he says, I'm going to be king of the pirates. And yet everybody that he gathers along the way so far, you know, how much they feel like family and how much he dedicates his own energy and resources to keeping them all safe. I don't think I really thought about the fact that saying like, my goal is that I'll become king of the pirates isn't totally fair. He is saying like, almost, we're going to become kings of the pirates. And like, yeah, he'll be the guy in charge, like on paper. But he sees his friends as his equals in a lot of ways. And I feel like he's really seeing this as, I'm carrying you along for this ride, you know, if this is about all of us. So anyway, sorry guys. I know that I digressed quite a lot there, but you know, the girl's got to do what she's got to do. So this is when we go back to Buggy. I love these dudes continuing to encourage him. Mr. 3 getting extremely like frustrated here. And then we have the narrator jumping in, and the world has been rocked by one revelation after another. And it all began with when more than 200 inmates managed to escape from the iron-tight prison of Impel Down, and the most notorious prisoners have now taken a lead role in this epic battle. You guys, you know what I'm saying about like the filler here? We know. We're watching this. We see we've been there for all of this. Why are we being told the summary of everything we have already it's not like we saw this ages. It's still happening. It's literally in front of us. But anyway, so the populace of the world has no choice but to helplessly observe, and knowing that the outcome will determine their very future. And I'm going to be honest, I get what he means in like the abstract, because of what we have seen of people having to evacuate. But there is a part of me that sort of felt like, is this going to affect their future? Like, I was thinking of it in terms of the Song of Ice and Fire aspect, where basically the people in the know, they say that the small folk don't care who's on the throne. They don't give a shit. All they want is to live in peace and have enough food and for their children to be born healthy and grow old. And the person on the fucking throne is like largely immaterial to them. And that's sort of how I felt here, which was like, you know, I get that I'm supposed to think that this matters to these people, but it just feels like it doesn't actually have much impact on them, really. I don't know how much of it will matter. So anyway, this is when the like whole shift of things with the people viewing on another island. They're on the what do you call it? Oh my god, you guys. I forgot the name of the bubble island. But yeah, it looks like these guys are going to kill Ace right here, right now. And everybody is sort of like, wait, did they change up the time already? Like, what's going on? And Sengoku yells for them to shut down all of the cameras. And we must prevail. Like, we're going to step over the line. And it's too much for this naive world to understand, let alone see. Which, if you're saying you guys aren't going to understand it, so we're about to do something really fucked up and you can't see it. This is the sort of thing that I want to believe everybody would see through and be like, wow, if you turn the cameras off, it must be pretty awful. And that in itself really like shows you how bad this is about to be. But then I think about the fact that we have like cops who literally say, oh, really? Is that how you want to act? Well, then I'll show you. And then turn their body cam off. And that's all on tape. And then the suspect turns up half dead. And everybody's like, wow, I wonder what happened. Wild. And it's like, we are incapable of connecting those two dots. So, you know, every time that I start to be like, this feels a little too obvious, I have to stop and realize people just don't want to know stuff. Sometimes, you know? So maybe this is actually pretty fucking accurate. So, all right. Anyway, it turns out that the plan here had been, we're going to pretend that we're accelerating the timing of Ace's execution so that we can lure all of these pirates into the bay and then close it off so that they are all trapped in here. And we'll be able to surround them and take them down from the inside. And it didn't go the way that they planned. They're attempting to continue with what they, like, their original plan anyway, with creating these walls. But it's like, the setup for it all isn't what they had promised. What is the name? I'm so sorry. Of the character with the bangs who shows up at the end of episode, is it 2? But they're the one who's basically like yelling, this was not what you guys said the situation was going to be. We were supposed to be able to pick them off like fish in a barrel. And they're all spread out all over the place. What the fuck? And at this point, to sort of help contain them, we have brought out all of the Kumas. Kuma as an android, guys, and there being so many of him is so bizarre. Like, I just didn't realize what they were prepping us for when we saw Android Kuma turn up for the first time. I don't know if you call him Cyborg. Is it Cyborg? I feel like it must be Cyborg because that's like a combination of human flesh and robotics, right? Sabaody is the name of the bubble island. Thank you, David. And Florian's reminding me their name is Sentamaru. Is Sentamaru a man or a woman? I feel like I thought it was a woman, and I'm realizing maybe not. Not that it matters, I guess, but I was just curious. So I'm going to I have to speed things up here. I'm so sorry, everybody. I've just there's like a lot of interesting stuff going on, considering how drawn out a lot of it is. But let's deal with like the primary issue here, which is all of these Kumas who are absolutely laying waste to these other pirates. Like, they are coming up against these Kumas over and over again with bazookas, giant maces, really thinking they're doing something. And the smoke clears and that Kuma bot is just standing there like nothing happened, completely unmoved. And, you know, knowing what they're capable of, the fact that they have so many, it just seems like such an unfair advantage. I don't know how they stand against these dudes. But then we have the moment at the end of this episode, which is really like sort of the most important part, which is when this guy, his name is Squard, I think. He is talking to Whitebeard about how much he and his men all owe him. And how, you know, we're here to lay down our lives and it's a privilege to do so. And I was sort of wondering what was going on, because the vibe of this guy felt off to me. And it was like he was supposed to be sort of almost, you know, declaring his fealty. But the way that he was coming closer and closer to Whitebeard as he's talking, I was like, I don't really like this. What's happening here? And eventually, he does a sneak attack. And he says, I know you're a man who would do anything for his family, but the problem is, we're not your family. And he stabs Whitebeard in the chest. And we find out at the start of the next episode that he was told Whitebeard made a deal where if he brought this war against the Marines, they would be attacking all the pirates except Whitebeard's own crew. Basically, you brought in all of these allies as distractions to do your dirty work because you knew it would keep your guys safe. Which, like, if he had thought about it for 2 seconds, doesn't make any sense. Any at all. There was, like, a moment where I stopped and I was like, wait, did he? Like, oh. But then you jump to the scene where he's being told this by a Marine. And I'm like, yeah, why do you believe him? Like, I wanted there to be more of an explanation as to why he thought that this information was something that he could trust. And I don't know if there's supposed to be like sort of subtext that he knows this guy from somewhere else that would feel like we have a previous relationship and that would explain it. But yeah, this dude has been played like, I was going to say a violin, but I forgot what show it is. They say, like, actually a violin is very difficult to play. I played you more like a kazoo, like a cheap kazoo. That's what this feels like. He really thought he was doing something. And I'm like, has it not occurred to you that just telling you this little fib and getting you to do the whole thing is a stroke, like, that they can just stand back and let happen? You're delivering this dude on a plate like an asshole. So, meanwhile, as this whole thing is happening and we get the slow pan amongst everybody as they realize that he has been stabbed, we have then the you guys, the way that this thing with Buggy shakes out, it's so weird. Because they have taken over the cameras and they're trying to do like a propaganda thing where they're showing how like badass Buggy is. But they're doing more than one take even though it's live. So, like, Buggy keeps fucking up. At one point, he has a nosebleed for some reason. And they just go back and have him, like, say the lines again. And meanwhile, Sengoku is freaking out. Like, what the fuck? I told you guys to turn the cameras off. What is this? And everybody back on Sabaody is like, why are they showing us this? We're gonna miss the execution? What is going on? This is not interesting. And I think that is very funny. This whole bit, it reminds me of trying to record like a campaign video for like a local office and how awkward it is, but everybody gets to see the awkwardness. There's no cutting and editing first to make it at least feel a little bit more put together. Thank you, Florian. I had forgotten this aspect, and you're right. Florian says, I think part of with Squard is his hate for Roger, and Whitebeard did not tell them that Ace is the son of Roger. Thank you for reminding me of that, because I totally forgot about that aspect of it. But yeah, that's how this guy sort of feeds into it, is to just be like, this, because I think the thing is that Roger, like, burned this guy's ships and killed his men. And so he has a grudge against him. And conveniently, Whitebeard left out of his story with, like, come and help me rescue my guy, that it was the son of this dude's enemy. And so the guy is feeling a way about that as well, which, that's fair, you know, because he did know what he was doing, keeping that shit secret. But wow, you got played so hard. It's just embarrassing. So embarrassing. And there's a point at which, as he realizes that he has been played, he says, it's a miracle I was even able to stab you. And now it's your turn. Kill me. And he just stands up and holds his arms out. And it's just like, all right, go for it. And for his part, Whitebeard is like, you are a fucking dope. I can't believe you fell for that. It's truly tragic that you don't have more brains, but also I forgive you. In an almost like sweet moment where this guy was not ready to be forgiven. You know, this dude just like got him right in the gut. I was sort of thinking at first that when he got him, we don't see any blood. And so there was a moment where I thought maybe it didn't hurt him the way it would hurt anybody else because there's not bleeding. And so it indicates that there's some kind of like other power going on here. And for all I know, that may still be true. But I will say that Marco, who is like Whitebeard's right-hand guy as of this moment, he is really, really pissed at Squard. I can't say his name without wanting to giggle, you guys. It just feels like I'm not saying a real word. Like I'm just using a sound from when I forget a name. Anyway, but yeah, he's like acting as if this was a mortal wound. And it might just be because it's the level of betrayal and not the wound itself. But, yeah, it's the vibe here of like Whitebeard. He is holding his hand over the wound, but it's not really like he's bleeding from another spot up near his mouth, I guess, like getting punched in the face or something. And there's a little blood coming out from under his hand. But considering that this is a gut wound, you would really expect it to be a lot worse. So I'm thinking maybe this is not what it looks like. However, he, you know, regardless of whether it's a mortal wound or as bad as it looks, it's certainly going to be a problem for him to be injured. He acknowledges, like, you don't even know what you've done. You fucked up so bad. So let's see. I'm just trying to jump ahead a little bit here because the speech about everybody being a part of his family is sort of punctuated by Whitebeard managing to destroy the ice wall. And I don't know how he did that. We still don't really know what his power is, right? Like, not fully. He started the, what do you call it? The tidal wave. So I'm assuming he managed to break it via some sort of like earthquake ability, because we've seen that before. But yeah, that wall had been gonna be everybody's downfall, how they were penned in. And it looks like he's just really solved that problem in one shot. I fucking love everybody yelling about, like, they thought that they all believed what Squard said at first. And as they realized that he got tricked, Squard is just up there crying. And everybody around Whitebeard is just like, hey, can you forgive us for thinking the worst of you? Because, you know, sorry, we're still on your side. So we have, like, the last thing that he says is basically, I am not going to live forever. I need somebody to, like, step into my shoes. And if I can save this guy's life, I'll be able to retire. And, you know, everybody help me with this, like, one mission, my last thing that I'm trying to do before I give it, like, call it a wrap on my career in this. And then he leaps forward off the front of his ship. And that's, you know, that's the last moment of the episode. So this is, I'm really curious because, like, we have only seen a tiny bit of what he can do. But Sengoku calls him the strongest pirate in the world. And if he's saying that, I feel like that means something, you know? Oh, Florian says the tremor fruit. It's been said before. Okay. I didn't remember that. Sorry, guys. Tremor fruit. That's a good name. Some of the fruit names I'm like, really? But I like that one. That one's cool. And yeah, why are you going to try and make these walls? If you've got a guy who can do that, it feels like you're really just kind of wasting your time. And everybody's time. But, it's none of my business, I guess. So these were fun. I really liked these 3 episodes. And looking forward to seeing where we're going here. Also, are we getting a check-in with any of our other people at any point? Or are we just going through this arc straight up without, you know, it like the way that we did with Impel Down? I think it's going to be more like that. Which, it's interesting. I'm assuming that the reasoning behind this was because nobody but Luffy is of an adequate fighting level to be in and amongst this particular crowd and make it. But maybe not. Maybe there was a whole other plan going on. So, all right, I got to wrap up. Thank you guys again. Thank you, Florian, for commissioning this, and David and Florian for coming to the chat, and all of you for listening. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.